Welcome to Failing for You, where I'll fail so you don't have to, or even better yet, so you can too. Hey everybody, it's Jordan Yates. Welcome back to another episode of Failing for You. Today we have a new guest, Jarrod Orszulak. Did I say that correctly?
You did very well.
Yeah, I double checked our LinkedIn message where you told me how to say it. So I practiced it a few times because I wanted to get it. Jarrod, say hi to everyone.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Yes, absolutely. Guys, so funny. Jarrod was shouted out on our episode with Matt Brower because they know each other and they sort of work together. And I was going through my messages with Jarrod before the episode trying to see like what we talked about last. And I saw that we had talked to each other even before I met Matt. And I was like, how small is this world that like someone else is referring me to him? And turns out I already knew him. So that just double verified that we had to bring Jarrod on. So he's here today. Jarrod, I'd like to start off by telling us a little bit about what it is that you do.
Sure. I'm I guess, sales application engineer with Everett Position, which is a small specifying distributor.
Okay.
We don't make the products, but we help companies mostly out of Europe find customers in the United States, Canada. Our main products are rotary sensors, linear, and then we do some liquid level and tilt sensors.
Okay.
But as part of a small company, you asked what I did, or excuse me. So I handle all of our marketing. I'm our quality manager, also cybersecurity because we have some defense contracts.
Okay.
So here, I guess today I can talk about marketing and I can talk about, being a sales engineer. I think we'll leave the other ones kind of off to the side.
Yeah, it's funny because anyone who's worked for a small company, they'll understand what you mean by you do a lot of different things. It's always funny, you have your one title, but then you have what you actually do, which is like a million other different hats that you wear. So it's nice to see a well-rounded engineer capable of doing marketing. Those are pretty rare, as people tell me, because my position is literally a marketing engineer, and everyone is like, "What is that? That sounds like an oxymoron to be a marketing engineer." But can you tell us a little bit more about like what is the marketing that you do at your job?
Sure. The like any other company, there's two goals. It's re-engage with your existing customers, and how do we bring in new customers? To a large extent, that's the value we're bringing the lines that we represent. It's some technical support in local time zones, but it's also bringing in those new customers. So we do a little of the traditional print advertisements and whatnot. Trade shows. We were at the Con Expo show last month. We'll be at Automate with everybody and their mother. It feels like next month. But more recently, it's looking at the digital stuff. So my personal efforts have been around short YouTube videos introducing the products. Again, our products are relatively complex, so the goal isn't necessarily to bring somebody all the way to that buying decision, but rather,
Yeah.
engaging somebody enough that they find it interesting. And for what we do, and I always talk about like with Matt and his team, is like our goal is just to get people to pick up the phone or to write us an
Yes.
email or something, and that's where our marketing ends. So most of our marketing is technical content, and it's a combination of, well, not so much marketing from a shiny object standpoint, but
Yeah.
is there something that can help somebody to understand what this product does? So somebody can see the value in what this encoder does versus a different one, or there's some educational component. So that's really the main goal: is can we develop marketing content that's educational?
Yeah.
If we can, then we're doing our job, and if we can't, then we have to look in the mirror and figure out what we're doing with ourselves.
It's so hard because that's literally like why my side business exists of like making content because it is so hard to make content for technical products and make it like engaging because sometimes, for a regular person, you come across like these rotary encoders or whatnot, and it's like, or sensors, and they're like, okay, like I can't even tell what that is by looking at it. Whereas someone in the industry, they see it, they understand what it is, but it's like how do we engage like, up and coming engineers that are coming out of college and like that are new to this industry and are going to be making buying decisions soon. Like you want to try to make it interesting, but it could be so difficult with these products that are just so not like our normal flashy stuff that you would see like on, I don't know, like shoes or something that are like you can make look really cool. So I understand on a personal level the struggle with that. But that kind of leads me into like we were talking about before, the position of being somebody that is in engineering, transitioning out into the world, seeing the different kind of roles they have and the stuff that they have to learn that they didn't necessarily learn in school. Because in school, we're learning like all these formulas and equations and all this theoretical stuff. And then you graduate and say you go into manufacturing, all of a sudden you're looking at distributor catalogs for things like, sensors. Like it's a weird transition. Like what was your kind of like take on that? Like I want you to introduce your angle that you were telling me about.
Well, like most things in life, it was all by accident and unintended. I initially was working for a lab at MIT. It was really cool and interesting. At the
Ooh,
same
yeah.
time, and when I took the job, my director said to me, he's like, "This is somewhere for you for 3 to 5 years." He's like, and it's, at the end of that, he's like, "You're either going to go get your doctorate or you're going to go into industry, but we don't have a home for you here." And that was okay. I mean, it was a
Yeah.
great opportunity. I met great people, learned a lot. Very grateful for it. So at that point in life, my girlfriend, to eventually be wife, was relocating to Philadelphia. So I
Mm-hmm.
said, okay, well, let me find work there and I'll go there.
Yeah.
So I stumble across this company. I don't quite understand what they do, but my resume matches the job description like perfect. I go in there, I
Mm-hmm.
have 2 interviews. I still have no idea what these people do. But again, I need a job. It's close geographically. It seems like a good
Mm-hmm.
fit. They seem like good people. And part
Yeah.
of the reason I took the job was they had a guy who was fresh out of college who had been there 3 months. And I'm like, well, he seems to know what he's doing and he's getting along all right. And I
Yeah.
mean, he's smart enough, but I don't think he's that much smarter than me. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'll figure this out. So fast forward, I start the job on Halloween, and again, kind of like going through the motions. Still not really sure what these folks do, but
Mm-hmm.
you know, they all seem well intentioned. And the Rockwell Automation Fair was the second week I was there at work. So
Oh
I walk
goodness.
in, and we were the company I worked for, Positol, was an Encompass partner. So
Mm-hmm.
my boss and one of my colleagues were supposed to be going to Chicago for the show, and my colleague takes me aside and he goes, "What are you doing this week?" I said, "I'm coming to work." He
Yeah.
says, "No, you're not. You're going to Chicago." And I was like, "Excuse me, what?" He goes, "My grandfather's sick. I can't go. So
Yeah.
you're gonna go to Chicago." So I'm like, "All right." So they booked me a flight. I go to Chicago. I'm literally like reading cut sheets in like the back of the cab
Yeah.
on the way to the McCormick Center. I have no idea what I'm doing, and I'm at Automation Fair, which I don't know if you had a chance to attend Automation Fair, but it's
Mm-mm.
like one of the only shows I've been to where people line up outside of the show like it's like a nightclub, and they
Oh my
wait for them to
goodness.
like open the doors, and then they like flood in. It's
That's insane.
Rockwell does a really good job. I mean, they put everything in 2 days. It's a lot of
Yeah.
fun. So so here I am talking to people about a company I'm still understanding, what they do and stuff. Um, and so long story short, like I get thrown into this sales role. I was hired as a product
Yeah.
manager. I'm like, oh, products life cycle, learn products, meet
Yeah.
R&D, circle back that information, improve the product. This is what I think I'm doing. And instead I'm
Mm-hmm.
like talking with like, Joe Schmo and Bubba from wherever about their harvester, and they need to know where it is because it can't tip over, and, and,
Mm-hmm.
and this, that, and the other thing. I'm like, well, we have these tilt sensors here, and yeah, you could get an analog output, and you're like, oh, that'd be great, yeah, send us information, and you scan it
Mm-hmm.
and you move on to the next one. And once all this is over with, I kind of began to realize that there's this real big hole in our organization
Yeah.
for marketing. And it wasn't because Tom couldn't make it to the show. But what happened is it was a European company. The folks who they did have doing marketing were in Europe. The engineers there weren't really taking the time to communicate the benefits of the products to marketing. So they're trying to sell these products based on like specs, which you can kind of get away with in Europe, but it's a
Yeah.
total no-go in the United States, where you sell benefits. What is it to help you to accomplish?
Yeah.
And at one point I realized that I'm the only native English speaker in my brand.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
and I am not somebody who really was like all about English and literature. I mean, I made it through college reading one book front to
Yeah.
back, like as bad stereotypical engineer as you can get here. And
Mm-hmm.
but I found this niche because even though trying to talk with the R&D team from a distance was hard, the marketing team was pretty easy, maybe because they
Yeah.
were communicating, but nobody was talking to them.
Mm-hmm.
So I start proofreading our material. I start working with our third party marketing group and stuff. And so I ended up supporting that. And then we had about 25 distributors throughout the United States. And
Mm-hmm.
whenever I was bored, I'd go on LinkedIn and give myself a new title. So
Yeah.
after 5 years, I left as the head of North American sales and distribution.
Oh my goodness. Look at you climbing up there. It's funny when you like find these gaps and you're like, well, no one's gonna stop me because this stuff needs to be done. So you might as well just like keep trying it out, and that's a very unique position for you to be in. But also I feel like it actually does happen more than we think, where it's like this lack of communication between the technical people and the marketing people. And that's why it's like, thank goodness there's people like you willing to do both, because there's some engineers that are like, yeah, no, like that's not going to work for me. Like I became an engineer to only do engineering, but unfortunately we realized like there's so much more to engineering than actually just doing, the numbers and crunching all that and designing. It's like there's all the other communications aspects, and it's like even if you just did engineering and there was just marketing people, like you have to have somebody in between that can communicate and like speak the language of both parties, because they don't often mesh well. Like one's too technical and one is just like doesn't understand it, and the technical people get frustrated and they're like, why don't you understand this? And then the non-technical people are like, can you take your 5,000 words down to like one sentence? It's just like a whole cluster. So it's kind of funny that like your first position moving out was like doing that. That must have been a interesting learning experience.
It was, and I'm lucky. I had wonderful mentors over the years. Some through the Encompass program. You just meeting people at other companies who were kind of doing the same thing.
Yeah.
You would go to these road shows and you kind of see the same people, and you'd all go out for dinner or whatnot, and make small talk and so really lucky for that. I actually was able to pull more from my job at MIT than I
Yeah.
ever had expected. I had
Oh my
a
goodness.
great director who used to say that all business is show business, and we would put on all sorts of presentations for sponsors and different things, and being able to pull from that, pulling from even like when I was a kid, 16, 18 years old, I used to work at this little mom and pop country store, and you work with somebody who's kind of been in this small business, running their own place, and seeing what they go through and whatnot, and if you can pull bits and pieces out of all those things, suddenly you leave feeling like, okay, I took 3 classes in economics. I've never taken
Yeah.
a business class, but you know what? I can do this. I can find my way. So
That's the weird thing about engineering degrees is like there's so many more hours in your degree plan that are like the upper level engineering classes that you don't get as much of the regular classes. Like I didn't have to take as many art credits. I didn't have to take a language. There was so much I didn't have to do because it was so engineering heavy. And so sometimes I feel like people come out like only having done technical stuff for years, and then there's like this gap because they didn't get to work on any of the soft skills as much unless they had a job or just happened to like be a social person, which is 50-50 with engineers, maybe less. But I got lucky because my dad was a car salesman most of my life and worked in that industry, so like that's just like what I was used to. I was used to like selling everything. I was used to like if I wanted something, I had to make a good case and I had to present it. And like my siblings and I, whenever we would like want something for Christmas that was like out of the budget, we'd make like a PowerPoint presentation and we would like be like, this is why I want it. This is why I should get it. So like I feel like I've always had that ingrained in me to where I forgot that most people don't, especially technical people. So then it makes me wonder, like, and I want your opinion on this, like, what point should there be like an intervention of adding this other aspect to it? Like, is it college? Is it early career, wherever you're working? Like, in your ideal scenario, where does someone intervene and say, hey, these nerds need some soft skills? They are good
Yeah.
at math, but they can't talk.
Well, it's kind of like being a parent. When you're a parent, you blame the teachers, and when you're a teacher, you blame the parents.
Yeah.
And everybody blames the administration. But
Yep.
part of it, and part of the reason I wanted to come on this podcast was to, talk about this idea that we're all in sales, even the technical people.
Yeah.
And the idea behind it is an idea. I went to the University of Rochester in Rochester, New York, and the engineering library is named after Carlson, who basically invented the Xerox copier.
Oh my goodness.
And the idea is, and somewhere there's a plaque on the wall or something for him, but is that more or less Carlson invents the Xerox copier himself in New York City in a lab, tinkering around with it. And but if you go back and you look at most inventions before 1900, they're credited to individuals. If you look at most inventions after 1900, they're credited to groups, labs, whatnot. So Carlson's kind of the exception. Well, you dig in a little more and you find out, no, he's not the exception. He had some guy helping him. Okay?
Yeah.
So even if it was a team of two, it's still a team of two. It wasn't one person. So if any of us, whether we're students, whether it's yourself, our colleagues, are really in the field of technical development, original thought and stuff, we're probably not going to come up with these ideas by ourselves. It's probably going to be in some sort of team, whether it's informal or formal. And I do some mentoring with undergraduates now and talking to them. And I really like sell this idea hard because really it's hard to imagine a situation where you have an idea and you get to test it and develop it without any assistance from anybody else.
Yeah.
So if we have a good idea at work, we need to go to our supervisor and say, hey, we have this idea, a better way to do it. I'd like some time to do it. Or I need some funding to bring in these tools.
Yeah.
Or you develop this idea and now you need somebody to go and do CAD because I'm an electrical engineer and I don't know how to do 3D drawing. So I need some of such and such time. And now I got to sell him on my idea so he understands it and he's excited about it and he does a bang out job, writing it up. So, and that's what happens. So, sales is like a 4-letter word when you're an engineer. It's like, no, I came here and you're an undergraduate and you're like, I'm going to do like PCB substrate research because like Professor such and such does it. And it's so fascinating. It's what I want to do. And you have no idea what else is out there. But even if you go and you succeed at doing that, you still need to be able to communicate your ideas and sell your ideas.
Yeah.
And that's why I think that part is so critical, that communication part. And I call it sales. I don't call it influencing, which would probably be more fashionable.
Yeah.
But as somebody said on another podcast I was listening to, like there's lots of books about sales, so it's not hard to actually learn it, to pick it up. So to get back to your question, I really think it's something at college at the very latest it should be introduced. What does give me concern is the increasing amount of folks who are working remote.
Yeah.
They're going to lose the opportunities to pick up those skills because a lot of times you're getting them informally. You're getting them from talking around the water cooler and talking to people who aren't on the project you're on, but they're making small talk with you and stuff. That's how I picked up most of these skills. And I really worry about this next generation of engineers who are entering the workforce who are going to be deprived of those opportunities. So I think that becomes more on them to figure that out, to put themselves in opportunities to work on those soft skills, work on communication and whatnot.
Yeah, that is weird to think about because I finished college in like the think my last semester and a half was basically like remote-ish because it was during the pandemic, like during major lockdown 2020. And it was weird because it's like I couldn't imagine doing that through like most of school and then just like never getting that developmental phase where you're actually just like learning, like you said, informally of like talking to people and just like being around people, mingling, because everything's so remote these days. And then you go into the industry and you get a remote job and it's like, at what point are you forced to socialize? Like, I remember my little sister growing up wanted to do homeschool because like she just hated being around other kids. Like she found it stressful and anxiety ridden. And I was like, literally the only way to like figure it out is like just to go through it. Like you just have to go through the growing pains. You have to be uncomfortable. You have to learn, and then eventually you just like figure it out. And I do feel like that's gonna be weird to see over the next few years of like who is majorly affected by that and like how incapable my generation may end up being with soft skills. So far, I haven't noticed it too much because I am now remote, but I luckily in my side business isn't. Like I get to be around people a lot. I get to go to conferences and things like that. But people that I meet that are, I don't know, like Gen X are always shocked that I can speak because they're like, oh, like we thought everyone your age only know how to use like TikTok and that you don't know how to talk to people. And I'm like, don't get me wrong, I don't enjoy talking to people because like to me as an engineer, small talk is like the bane of my existence. I hate small talk. Like why are we talking if we have nothing important to say? But my therapist said I have to small talk if I want to make friends. So, small talking apparently is important. But to me
Builds
sometimes I'm just
trust.
like, yeah, I'm like, can we just like get to like the interesting part of the conversation? Like how long are we going to talk about the weather? You know, but luckily, living in Houston, the weather's really weird, so it actually is an interesting conversation.
Right, and what it does is it really it brings up best practices. That's what so much
Mhm.
of this is so when we're talking about like soft skills and all these things, like it's really best practices. So in my job as a sales engineer, I don't know who calls up. That's what makes my
Mhm.
job so much fun.
Yeah.
People who are really smart, people doing really cool things, way more interesting than rotary sensors or whatever else.
Mhm.
And they want to talk to me, and I can help them because I know a lot about this really tiny little part of the industry, which is
Mhm.
such, you know, just a lot of fun. And to what you're talking about, so talking to these people, some people want to make small talk, some people want to talk for a while, some people talk
Mhm.
really fast, and other people talk really slow. So it comes down
Yeah.
to like public speaking 101, which is who's your audience? And you know, if you take a step back and you listen to who you're talking to, or you know what you're going into, when you're out and you're making sales calls in, you know, rural Iowa, it's different than making sales calls in New Jersey.
Mhm.
Personally, I love making sales calls in rural Iowa because
Yeah.
people are so nice.
They are in
They'll
any
listen to
rural
whatever you
area.
have to say. It's
Yeah.
so easy. I mean, you only make like 2 calls a day because like you spent 4 hours in the car, but that's
Mhm.
okay. And it's not that I don't like making sales calls in New Jersey, but again, you like it's like give me what I need, now get the hell out. Um,
Yeah.
and again, like there's advantages to that too. But like these are life skills. These aren't engineering skills. These aren't things that are unique to engineers,
Mhm.
but they're so critical that you have you that you I whoever the next generation of engineers pick these things up because one of the things I've seen and when I'm mentoring some of these students is they think that they can acknowledge that it's hard for them to do it,
Yeah.
but they're used to something being hard for them to do and
Yes.
then still being like a B+ student.
Mhm.
And it's like, no, like I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but it's like this cover letter you wrote really, really bad. And like and sometimes it's students who maybe English isn't their first language or something,
Mhm.
and like it's like no, like you can't hand me a cover letter with like simple grammatical errors in it.
Mhm.
Like I understand you tried and you think it's worth like a B+, but it's not. Like
Yeah.
this is a C-. Like you have to go and find somebody to proofread this for you. Like
Mhm.
that's not cheating. That's doing your
Yeah.
due diligence so that like you can submit it and say like this is the best writing I can give you. It's not a
Mhm.
formal writing sample. It's your best representation of yourself. And if it's littered with grammatical errors and other things, then it says to me as, a potential employer that, you don't take these things seriously, which is
Mm-hmm.
going to be a problem. And, there's plenty of other applicants. I'm going to pass it off to the side.
Yeah. No, it is interesting how you kept referencing the need for not necessarily like a team, but like having somebody to bounce ideas off of or support, or like that it's okay to not be able to do everything on your own as long as you use like your resources and like surround yourself with good resources. Is there like a situation or a person or a point in time when you realize the value of this, or is this just something you've gotten from like doing it over time?
I think we all realize it in differential equations when we're allowed to bring that 3 by 5 index card into the exam.
Oh gosh.
But it's
Diffie was a rough time.
front, back, and the side. You get the side of the index card too.
Oh my gosh.
Um, but again, as engineers, we're not taught to memorize everything. We're
Mm-hmm.
not taught that we have to know the answers. We're taught that how to find the answers, and
Yeah.
sometimes finding the answers is finding other smart people or people who are experts and whatnot. So I think that's kind of when you realize it. There's an old statistic, and I'll butcher it, but it's like 40% of tech jobs in 10 years like don't exist or something.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I think that's so important is like we leave as students, we leave our school, our education, and we're like, oh, I only know how to do these 3 jobs. I can't do
Yeah.
those other jobs. And it's like, well no, you know enough that you can get started in those other jobs. It's up to the employers to decide if you know enough to do those other jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Because in 10 years, there's going to be 40% of the jobs nobody's going to have like gone to school for. I mean, think
Yeah.
of all the people right now working in like things like big data and stuff like
Gosh,
that.
yeah,
I
seriously.
mean, sure, a handful of them maybe did computer science or statistics, but most of those people don't have formal degrees.
Yeah.
In, data science, they learned it. I myself, my undergraduate degree is in biomedical engineering,
Good
which is
lord.
kind of like this new, recent, cool thing.
Yeah.
Biomedical engineering's been around for over 100 years.
Yeah.
Like, nobody waited for biomedical engineers to develop the X-ray or the CT or the MRI
Mm-hmm.
or anything else. Like, who was around? Well, we got electrical engineers, we got biologists, physicists. They all got together. They did it.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I don't know what the next field will be, but there's going to be opportunities there, and it's going to be the people who are electrical engineers or chemical engineers who are going to go and learn those skills and fill those roles. And
Yeah.
I think that's kind of the mindset that we have to, all of us, whether we're new in our career or, in the middle of our career, be in that sort of mindset so that we can continue to grow with it.
Yeah, I like how you said that about the problem solving of you're used to doing these hard things and figuring problems out in engineering, and you can kind of like apply that to new roles, because that was always my sales pitch of when I was applying to jobs. Like, yeah, I don't know this, but man, once I did physics 1, 2, and Cal 2 all in one summer. And if I can do that, I can literally do anything. And so that's always my justification when I do something hard, or I'm convincing somebody I could do something hard. And maybe if they haven't taken those classes, they don't understand the weight of it, but I do. And I'm like, if I can do this, I can figure this other thing out. Like, I guarantee it. Give me some time, give me some good resources, and I will make it happen. It's just like that can do resilient attitude you get once you make it through whatever engineering is.
Sure. And think about, do you want to be in a job where they're hiring you to only do what you already know how to do?
Yeah, then that's just
And
like
you're going to
boring.
do that for the next like 30 years? Like,
Yeah.
probably not if you're in engineering. Probably not if you're in marketing and you're a
Yeah.
creative person.
Mm-hmm.
You really want to be hired by somebody who, because of what you could learn, what you could accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
So as you think about, your career path, and again, you can be, more or less anywhere in that, where are you going to be in 5 years? So if it's, well, because what'll happen is you end up getting like pigeonholed. And it's
Yeah.
like, oh, well, Joey does really good CAD drawings. So just go to Joey and he'll keep doing your CAD drawings. And
Yeah.
like, don't get me wrong, like if Joey likes doing CAD drawings, like that's great. But at the same time, like that's something he has to make peace with.
Mm-hmm.
And, most of us, again, in these creative fields, are aspiring for a little more.
Yeah, I took a poll the other day on LinkedIn asking like what's your number one priority in a job, and I said pay, work-life balance, something, and then internal career growth opportunities. And honestly, I thought like pay and work-life balance were going to be the highest two, but the internal growth slash like opportunities was like either the highest or second highest next to work-life balance. And I was kind of shocked because I was like, I didn't realize that people took that part as seriously, because I know these days it seems popular to just like hop from job to job, but maybe that is why, because they don't see that like paths towards like what's next in this career, like what's next at this company, like can I even move up because there's only so many people here, or there's no like defined path for what's next. So that is interesting. Like people do get bored after a while. And I thought when I was in college that I wanted to be the kind of engineer that just like sat in a cubicle and got left alone all day. Cause like I was just exhausted. Like I was so tired by the time I graduated. I was like, I'm just so done. Like I just want to be left alone and make money. But of course I go straight into sales. So that wasn't exactly the case. And it's never been the case for me. I'm never going to be somebody who just is stagnant doing something. Like I think I'm incapable of that. Hence working a full-time job and having a side business and then having a podcast and all these other things. Like I just don't know how to be stagnant, which is good, but it's also tiring. But yeah, no, I agree with all of that, what you said. But I guess we're getting close to our time. I've been working on keeping these closer to 30 minutes. So I guess, is there anything else that you want to leave us with today? Any remaining thoughts or points or things that we didn't say that you want to put out there?
Sure. So there's a quote I wanted to share with you, and hear what
Okay.
your thoughts are. So I don't know again where this one originates, but
Uh huh.
it's often kicked around the startup in the Silicon Valley area, and it's fail and fail fast.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it's so important that it's good to try things and whatnot. But it's okay to fail, and it's okay to say, well, that's not what I want to do.
Yeah.
I personally I wanted to do medical imaging since I was a little kid. I always thought it was fascinating.
Uh huh.
So I became a biomedical engineer, and then I got introduced to the frequency domain, and we just didn't get along. It was ugly, and I was like, I I gotta figure out what I'm gonna do with my life.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went over to instrumentation, and then something else. But um, the it's great to try things, and it's okay to say, well, that wasn't for me.
Yeah.
And to know when you're just throwing in the towel, and when you've given something its due diligence. And I think again, that's just a good way to look at things. So I just wanted to throw that one at
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. And that's kind of like, the theme of my podcast is like, it's okay to fail. Everyone fails. It's not like, like you're not screwed if you fail. Like, it's okay. That just gets you one step closer to where you want to be. As long as you're, gathering some data and learning from your failures, you're not just like going through like a bulldozer. So that's why I'm always trying to say it's okay to fail. That's just, to me, it's gathering data. It's not a big deal. But I do have a hard time drawing the line between like when it is okay to give up and be done and like I've done enough, or am I quitting early? Because this past weekend, or I guess it's almost been 2 weeks now, I've been working on it. I got a table from my boyfriend's aunt, and she used to feed her cat on the table. It's very gross, but it is gorgeous wood. Like the wood is so, so nice. And although, there's some gross stuff on it, like we wanted to refinish it and redo it and have it in our house because, we're still early and getting all of our furniture and things like that. So I've been sanding it down, but it's like a 30-year-old table, and it has like all the different edges and like crevices, and it's so hard to sand. Like I spent like 6 or 7 hours doing it Friday evening, and then like another 6 on Saturday, and then Sunday I'm just on the detail. I'm so, so close to being done sanding, and my boyfriend comes into the garage and he's like, "Hey, are you gonna finish up soon? Like I thought you weren't sanding today." And I was like, "Please tell me I'm allowed to give up." And he's like, "I'm not in charge of you. You can give up if you want." I was like, "I need permission to give up because I'm not giving it to myself right now. I said I would finish it this weekend, but like my back hurts. Like I'm physically in pain. I'm tired of laying on the garage floor, sanding the bottom of this table. Tell me I could give up." And he was like, yeah, you can give up. And I was like, thank you, thank you. I need to be done because sometimes I just don't know how to quit. So I get that there's such a balance in between the two. So I like the point that you made. And there's my long winded version of it. But
And see, and there you go. See, it took a team.
yep, exactly. It's why teamwork makes every dream work. That's all those t-shirts were on to something. But Jarrod, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for being such a willing participant and sharing your knowledge and experience with us. I appreciate it. And yeah, so thank you so much for coming on.
It was my pleasure. Thanks again.
Yes, guys, and that's all we have for today. So, in the meantime, I'm your host, Jordan Yates, and I'll be failing for you. See you next time.